Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sue Dalton, and I'm the Corporate Director of Sales for Goodwin House Incorporated. And we're so thrilled that all of you have had the opportunity to join us today. This may be your first webinar with Goodwin House, or you may have participated in many others. We've been hosting webinars since early March on a variety of different topics. If you've participated in one of our webinars before, then you know that this is a team effort. And while we have some people here in the room with me working on this webinar, some of whom you'll see a little bit later, we also have people in a variety of different offices and spaces who are supporting us. One of those people is Katie Ramos, and you've heard Katie's voice already in our virtual lobby. And you'll also hear our special guest and myself talking to Katie and asking her to advance our slides. She's in a different room, so we're going to have to speak to her that way. We also want to ask for your patience. We're using technology, and we're pretty sure nothing's going to go wrong, but if it does, we hope that you'll bear with us, and we'll do our best to fix it and bring us right back to where we should be. Katie, could you advance us to the next slide, please? Thank you. So a bit of housekeeping before we get started. You will see the presenters, and you'll also see the PowerPoint presentation that we'll be going through. We will have an opportunity for questions and answers toward the end of our webinar. We encourage you to submit questions, and you can do that throughout the webinar on the control panel of GoToWebinar, which is the software that we're using today. And on the next slide is some specifics about how you can enter your questions. You can submit a question by clicking on that question mark on the control panel. When you do that, the question pane will open, and you can just start typing your question whenever you'd like and hitting send, and we'll be collecting those. I'd like to let you know on the next slide, Katie, that today's webinar is sponsored by Goodwin House Life Plan Communities. That would be Goodwin House Alexandria and Goodwin House Bailey's Crossroads, where we have independent living and higher levels of care on our two beautiful campuses here in Northern Virginia. Additionally, Goodwin House at Home is a sponsor today, and Goodwin House at Home offers personal care coordination, access to high quality care, and a way to pay for that care in the future. Our flexible plan offers great benefits and is portable to wherever you decide to live. So today's agenda is that we are going to hear from our special guest, Eileen, and she's going to be talking to us about decluttering and downsizing. And we know that some of you may decide to stay in your homes for a while, and some of you may decide to move. Whatever you decide to do, decluttering is a really important thing to think about and do, and that's why we've asked Eileen to join us today. Decluttering your home provides a stress-free environment. It's a safer environment. And we hope that regardless of what your plans are, you'll take some of Eileen's tips and techniques into your own home. So Eileen Spada is from Wayforth. She's their sales director and client experience manager. Eileen has been working as a senior move manager for many years. She's a valued partner of Goodwin House. She's responsible for moving many of our residents into our communities in as stress-free a way as possible during a move. She also works with people in their own homes to create a safe and stress-free environment. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Eileen Spada from Wayforth.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm excited to share everything with you in our beautiful design center kitchen and just have a good time and start to talk about some things that you definitely want to know about because you're here. So thank you, Katie, for advancing slides as we go. This slide today, the first slide that we have here says a fresh start. And I think that anybody who's starting a project or setting down a road that might be a little bit unfamiliar really is looking for a fresh start. Whether you are staying in your house or you are thinking about a potential move someday, we want to make a path. We want to find a way to get there and have a goal. It's almost like going on a trip. You have to plan for things. What will you bring? What won't you bring? How will you get there? How will you do it? So we're going to talk about that today. Next slide, Katie. So this is one of my favorite little cartoons. As a downsizer, you just have to love when somebody opens up the garage door and says, "One day, son, all this will be yours." And so I always think, you know, I adore my father. He is 90 years old. I am 56, and my dad will try to give me things, but I'm trying to get rid of things in my own house. So I look at this father and son, and I think the same thing, right? You know, we have all these things that we brought into our house over the years because we think someone will definitely want them, and there's definitely a use for it. But sometimes we have to remember that the people we think might want it might already have it or might be trying to get rid of it too. Next slide, Katie. How do I know that's true? Well, this is life imitating art. This is many people's garages. And, you know, we have these big spaces and we have great intentions and things come in and sometimes they don't go where we want them to or stay where we want them to. It's not that we didn't want it then, but we thought it was going to go somewhere. So maybe we didn't get that donation pickup scheduled, but by the end of this slide, and by the end of this webinar today, you're going to have a lot of information on how to do that too and start to get things done. Next slide, Katie. So a downsizing example. We talk about spaces and we'll talk about a few of them today. We'll go through some even virtual spaces here, but what we want to look at in this particular slide is a before and after. We have a pantry that is super stocked up and not very organized, and one on the right-hand side, which obviously is very organized and has been cleaned up. You know, these days have been so odd for us. We have people waiting in line to go to stores, and we've been waiting for things to come into stores. So is it a time not to get the necessary things that you need and not to stockpile a little bit? Well, you know, I could give you a break on that. But I would say to do it strategically and to think about really just the things that you do use every day in your life. And you might like to stockpile a little bit of if, you know, if it was hard for you to get out to the store or supplies got a little less than we're used to. But generally, we want to only bring in what we are going to use. And I say eat everything else in that pantry. Next slide, Katie. Another downsizing example in a living room. Kind of an odd picture on the left, but I've been in many homes over the years. And sometimes we don't really see the way the room looks. I think taking a picture of a room is really great. It's almost like when I see a picture of myself, I'm like, I don't look like that, but you know what? You do. So look at these rooms. You know, we're putting things down because we have a plan and we are going to put these bins down here because we're going to get in that kitchen and downsize, but we didn't do it. And maybe that was 6 months ago. So how does your house look right now? Room by room, take stock of what is going on in your home. Again, if you're aging in place, then you want to make sure that you're minimizing the things that you don't use and you're opening up spaces. Next slide, Katie. It is all about simplifying. It's just a very simple slide, but it is about making your day easier. When people talk about people who have only 3 colors of clothes in their closet, they can get dressed in 5 minutes. Well, I can't do that and I'll never recommend that. But I think the rule is a good rule. If you have less in your house, then you have less to take care of. You will know what you have, you will use what you have, and enjoy what you have. Next slide, Katie. Are you ready? So when I say, are you ready? What I really want you to think about is, are you ready for the task at hand? Are you going to lead the charge? Are you going to contribute in the process? Do you want to? Do you not want to? Where do you need support? Where do you not need support? What are your red flags? What are you comfortable with? What is your physical ability? And do you have grandchildren or nieces or nephews or someone who can help you when you need it? And are you willing and ready to communicate to them that you have a very serious project that you are undertaking and that you may call on them to help? And are they going to be there for you? Because it would be good to know. Some children will not be able to help you and others will, but you want to know that and you want to kind of get your team together. Next slide, Katie. We all have too much stuff. We just do. Look at that apartment 201. It's not here at Goodwin House, but there is an apartment 201 everywhere. And we just have too much stuff. And really, you know, that's what we're going to tackle today. Next slide, Kate. We're going to get rid of what we're not using. What are your challenge areas? In everybody's house, there are places that we just don't want to go to. In my own house, you know, I have a huge storage room, which is ridiculous, and I'm always trying to get things out of there. But I don't even like going in it because I don't want things to go down there. So my husband actually, during all of this time at home, went down and got it organized, and we set up donation pickups and all that, and it feels good. But to me, that would be my challenge area, because too many people go in it, they put things down, they don't move it where I would want it, and that's a crazy spot to me. So what is yours? Is it your attic that you know you have boxes up there from 19 something something, and maybe it's holiday stuff and maybe the boxes aren't in great shape? Is it, you know, the stairs to the attic need to be fixed so you haven't been up there in a while? Is it paper? Do you know that you have a ton of paper to go to and you feel like if you can't do that first, then you can't get to the next spot? You know, think about what your challenge areas are. We've already had some great emails and great questions about people who have questions about clothes and shoes and books. So it's, you know, once you start this project, you kind of raise your level of awareness and find your challenge areas. Next slide, Katie. So there's lots of different kinds of clutter. And you should know me, if we've ever met before, you would know that a closet is, I'm not going to be very accusatory of anybody who has a lot of shoes in their closet. I'm jealous. But what we want to do is think about the abundance of things that we're not using. Now, if this woman in her closet, if she loves those shoes and she wears them all the time, there is nothing wrong with that. But to bring things in just to organize them and make them look pretty and have all that space on the floor taken up by things that we're really not using will not serve you well. If you are moving, then you need to pay someone to pack all that up, put it on a truck, take it off the truck, and bring it somewhere. So if you're not going to use it forever, let's not do that. Abundance is, you know, sometimes an overflow of things. You know, we have buy one, get one, and oversized products, and we feel like we don't have enough. So what about subscriptions and memberships and gift cards and all those things? Think about what you have just a little too much of and what you might be able to control, and start maybe in that area. Next slide, Katie. One kind of clutter. Places like BJ's and Sam's Club and Costco are not the best places for people who like to buy in bulk. Of course, we all like our paper towels these days, but I would say to limit your time at Costco. I don't know about you, but every time I go in there, I come out with like 4 plants and, you know, a shelf and something else, and I never even went there for that. So be intentional and don't let them get you. Try to think about what you really need. It is a smart place to buy things, but you can also buy things at the regular old Giant. Next slide, Katie. Bargain clutter is, oh my gosh, I can't even talk about it. Bargain clutter is the stuff that we get from the hotels and the little soaps and the shower curtains and the toothbrush from your dentist and the little tubes of toothpaste and all those things that come in, and we have such good intentions of using it all, but we haven't. And you know, everything has an expiration date. I have learned this. Shampoo will separate over time. You know, body lotions and things that have been sitting in drawers for too long don't smell that great anymore. So be very mindful of bargain clutter and free stuff. Next slide, Katie. Just say no. That's what you have to do. Just say no. Walk away. Thank you, Katie. Next slide. And I also want you to think about, as we move through, why we're holding on to things. Aspirational clutter is a real touch point with a lot of people. We have the weights and the barbells and the dumbbells and the Bowflex and the yoga bands and the yoga mats and all those good things. Crafty people have a lot of stuff. I've learned that over the years. Crafty people, musicians and educators, they really need space. They do have a lot of stuff because of what they've been doing over the years. But if you brought a lot in and you were crafty for a time and you haven't done that in a time, you might get back to it, which is great. But even if you do, you can go out and get the current products that you would need to start something over again. Are you going to use the dumbbells and the Bowflex and the treadmill now? Is it in good condition? So the things that we aspired to do, but we didn't, the ballroom dancing, the handyman tools around the house, maybe there are things that we used back then, but we don't use now. But if it was something that you thought you would get into and you just didn't get there, then you might want to consider letting it go. Next slide, Katie. Yeah, does this look familiar? The bike and the treadmill as a hanger. And I love that sweater on the bottom of the treadmill. It's a trip hazard. Next slide, Katie. So sentimental clutter is very, very sensitive and an area that if you are starting this project and opening up space in your house or thinking about a move, sentimental clutter is not something that you want to rush through. We've all had situations in our lives, events in our lives, people in our lives, jobs, whatever, that were sentimental in a good way or maybe a very difficult way. If you can tell the story, if you can share the story, if you can talk to people about some of these events and share the things that you're holding on to, it might let you let go of things easier or give things away. But sometimes we find that taking a little bit more time with those things and just kind of sitting in that space for a while allows you to separate from it a little bit. Next slide, Katie. So this is what I hear over and over again. And it's not a bad thing, but these are just the hot topics. When we are thinking about switching things up a little bit and we say, why am I holding on to this? I have a client from, I will never name his name, but everybody in my life knows who he is because he's one of my favorite people in the world. I moved him years and years and years ago, and he was such a great man and a really fabulous cook, Southern boy, and he made some good coleslaw. And so he had maybe 50 empty plastic ice cream containers in his kitchen because he would make a ton of coleslaw and then he would give it people and they would give him the container back. Well, when it was time to move, he said, well, I'm going to use this, so I'm going to bring them. I'm like, you're going to use 50? Yes, I am. I'm going to keep doing it. And sure enough, every time I bumped into him, he'd say, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I know I shouldn't have bought it. So just, think about why you're holding on to things. You might think that you will continue to do what you're doing in your house right now. Chances are you won't. Whether you're staying home or not, once you change things around, everything changes a little bit. And, you open up yourself to new possibilities. So maybe you're holding on to it because I might need it one day. Or as Sue Dalton said to me earlier, you never know. So you might need it one day. Well, it's true, you might, but if you haven't needed it in an extended amount of time, you might not. Really, the words might and one day in that sentence are like red flags. It's a gift from a family member or a friend. So there's a little story at Wayforth, which is a very true story, that one of my colleagues had this beautiful lantern given to her, and she did not care for it at all. And so anytime the person came over to the house, she would put out this lantern. And so when her birthday rolled around again, she got another lantern. So be careful what you do. If somebody gave it to you and you don't love it, it is okay to donate it, sell it, or get rid of it in some way. people don't give you things to burden you with them. I'll fix it one day. This is my favorite. I'll fix it one day. Well, if it's broken, it's broken, and maybe you can fix it. But if you do fix it, is it going to have the same value and serve you as it did before? If not, then let it go. If you're a good fixer and you can do that, then that's just fine. But if you've had it sitting there because you need one more trip to Home Depot to pick up one more thing to get it done, and that was 7 or 8 or maybe 10 years ago, then think about letting it go. And we're all guilty of this. Do you realize how much I paid for that? I always think you have to blame Wall Street, not your dining room table, but do you realize how much I paid for that? Eileen, I paid so much money for that dining room set. Well, you know what? We all did. And things were different then, right? We had the dining room set and the sideboard, and we had to have things a certain way. And we did spend a lot of money on it, and it served us well. It held our beautiful china, and we had a lot of great dinners at that table. Things are changing now. And you know, we don't want to hold on to something just because we feel like we put some good money on it back then. You did, it served you well. Wood generally doesn't appreciate and value that much, so you have to be really logical about those things. Next slide, Katie. Some quick tips. It's never too early to start. It's never too early to start. Whether you're never moving or staying in your home and beginning to think about aging in place, it's never too early to start. It's something we should be doing all of the time. You do want to stay focused. The best way to start any project is with a plan, and a plan starts with something that is something that you can do very easily to get warmed up. Pick an area and stay in that area. I have my mother-in-law, I'll never forget it, she told me years ago, and it's stuck in my head, start in one corner and work your way around. Work with somebody, whether you need the help or you just need the companionship, work with somebody who will be a good fit for you. I've had so many people over the years say, yeah, my friend came, my sister came, somebody came and they helped. But every time they held up a blouse or a sweater, they said, well, this is cute, you should keep this. So you want to work with somebody who might challenge you just a little bit. And also the final, schedule a donation pickup. I have been scheduling them over and over again. Places are opening up and they will come and pick things up right at your garage door or your front door or, you know, a convenient place. Next slide, Katie. Downsizing challenge. Okay, so you want to start with something easy, right? We have a good example here. So medication is something that is, you know, it's so important, right? There's some drop boxes in the Walgreens and CVS where you can drop off medications that you're not using anymore. As you know, in my family, we say if it has the Dallas Cowboys on anything, that should go right out the door. Just kidding. Anything that's expired, any food that's expired, any medication that's expired, any liquids that are expired, anything that is separated. VHS tapes, anything that's broken, and spices definitely have a shelf life. And we'll be talking about that too. Next slide, Katie. So spices. This is a real ad that was in a magazine. If you see Baltimore, Maryland on the label of your McCormick spices, that product is at least 15 years old. Except for black pepper, which still comes in a tin. So anything, if you see Baltimore, Maryland on the labels of spices at least 15 years old, except for black pepper, which are in rectangular tins still. Nothing else is. So check that. And there's even a website that you can go on McCormick to check your spices. Next slide, Katie. You want to have a plan. Whether you're staying at home or whether you're moving, you want to have a plan for each room. What is staying in that room and what is leaving that room? How will this room serve you? How will it serve you differently? What needs to be changed or updated? A plan is the best way to avoid big problems. Next slide, Katie. Oh, like a big problem like this. Like, but Eileen, I measured it and I know that sofa is going to fit because every room can have a sofa and 2 end tables. Well, it can, but maybe that sofa is larger than most or the end tables are larger than most. So you definitely want to Use physics. Get the tape measure out and make sure that things fit. Next slide. Thank you. Priorities. What are your priorities? We had a client that really loved her baby grand piano, and the kids came in, everybody was planning a move, and they were just 100% sure that that baby grand piano wasn't going to be able to fit. Well, you know what? Her dining room was not important to her because she was not using it and hadn't used it in years. So we put the baby grand piano in the dining room, and she was happy as could be. It's really about you and your life and your priorities, so don't be afraid to speak up. Next slide. Tip number 2, start small. Start with one drawer, a junk drawer, or one closet, the boiler closet or the coat closet, or one room, maybe even the laundry room, and go one at a time and work your way around. Next slide. I love a junk drawer. A junk drawer is just a great place to start, and we'll go over that today. This tip number 2, so set up an area for things that you're keeping, an area for donation, and an area for things to toss. And this little gal did not understand the exercise. Next slide. She's keeping way too much. Downsizing tip number 3, pick an unemotional area. So a linen closet is a great place to start. We all have things in there that just don't fit the bed anymore, or we got rid of that bed, we don't have the twin size beds. So really go through things and get them organized. Magazines, do you see that one? It talks about water beds. That's an oldie. Tip number 4, do I use it? Do I need it? Is it useful? Does it make my life easier? Does it bring me joy? These are the tough questions, and you really need to ask yourself this. Next slide, Katie. Does it spark joy? Now, it is a good little book. I don't agree with everything in the book, but it does bring about some good ideas and good topics. But the whole idea is that you want to hold on to things that really do make you happy and mean something to you. Next slide. Downsizing tip number 5, consider your lifestyle of tomorrow. Are you going to be cleaning the gutters and snow blowing and doing all those things around the house? And if not, then maybe that's a great place to start in the garage and start separating what you would take from what you wouldn't take. Sometimes we have things that are so house specific, and maybe the buyer of the house would want to have them. Next slide, Katie. China and silver. If you want to hold on to it, then use it. Silver is beautiful. Yes, you have to polish it, but I know so many people who use it every day and use their china every day, and they're so happy they're doing it. If not, then consider donating it or selling it. Next slide. Downsizing tip number 6, start shredding and recycling now. So really take that mail right at the mailbox and don't let it run your life. If it's trash or junk mail, just get rid of it as you're walking into the house. Taxes and paperwork and those important papers can be shredded, and you definitely want to take your time with them. Next slide. Tip number 7, in your closet. This is a toughie, but we have to do it. Does it fit? And I know we all have a few sizes. Do I love it? Is it in style, which some people would argue, what's in style? And apply the 1-year rule, which I don't. I apply a 2-year rule, but a 1-year rule is okay too. But generally, in everybody's closet, you're looking at things that you haven't worn in a while, and it is taking time to figure out what you're going to wear that day. So, you're going to have this whole section of your closet that you really don't go to anymore. Start there, and again, ask those tough questions. Next slide. Adopt a replacement policy. So if you are using those garage shoes over and over again and you're about to get rid of them, look in your house, in your own closet, and don't go out and buy something new. You probably have something in your house that can replace things that you're getting rid of and trashing. Next slide. Lots of charities are opening now. The Salvation Army, we're making a drop there tomorrow. Habitat for Humanity, Purple Heart, Vietnam Vets. So it might take a little bit of digging, but people are in need now more than ever, and it's a great time to donate. Next slide. And books. books is always a tough one. It brings about a lot of questions, and we can talk about some of that today. But really, when you're going through a room or a bookshelf or an area, a library or your office, you know, start to think about the books that you wouldn't hold on to anymore. That's step one. And then step two is, could you gift it to somebody? Just because you read it doesn't mean it's not a great gift to a grandchild or to, you know, somebody that you worked with. Think about books as a really beautiful gift. I think it means a lot if it was something that you really enjoyed. Next slide. Memory lane. As you're going through the items in your house and the photographs and the holiday decor, it is just a really great trip down memory lane, and enjoy it. The people that are helping you will enjoy it too. And as you find things that are important to you, take really good care of them and put them aside. And like we said before, share that story. Next slide. And these are the happy people who did all their homework. And now they're just having a great time. And that's what we're going to do for you. Hi, everybody. It's me.
Hey, Eileen, before you get started on your demonstration, I would just like to point out to everybody on the webinar that we are shooting today from an actual kitchen in an independent living apartment at Goodwin House, Alexandria. We do use this apartment as our design center. So when people are interested in moving into the community, they come here and work with our move-in coordinator, Lachey Johnson, to choose their cabinets and their countertops and their carpeting and their paint. And we thought this would be a great place for Eileen to conduct her demo, which she's about to do.
Yes, we are. So what we are going to look at is a couple different ways to declutter in your own house, in your own space, without pulling everything out and putting back only what you want, because I think that really just becomes messy and unorganized. Whenever I've done that, you know, I get off track for some reason, and at the end of the day, everything's still sitting there. So I would recommend that you don't do that. But what I would recommend that you try is to look at one cabinet and think ahead and start going through this cabinet and saying, okay, there's china in here and then my everyday stuff. What would I like to keep? Well, I'm definitely going to keep my everyday stuff. The china isn't china. It's just another set that I've had for many years. I really don't use it. There's so much of it. So how much do I want to keep? Well, I'm going to say 4. You know, 4 or 6 plates, knives, forks, spoon, you know, cups and all that. So let's, for today's purposes, we'll talk about keeping 4 of something. And your number is your number, and that's okay. So what I'm going to do is look at everything here. And there's 2 different ways that we can do it. I can say, okay, in this cabinet, I am going to shift everything that I do want to keep over here to the right side. I want to keep these glasses. I like these plates, and I do use those bowls, and they're kind of new. I don't really use those glasses, but here's another one. I like that one, so that would be one of my glasses I'm going to take. And then we have short people issues, not in this kitchen. But then I like this glass. I'm going to take that. And so these bowls up here, you know what, they're so heavy. I really have never used them because they're so heavy and I don't like them that much. But yeah, these plates, yep, I would definitely take these plates. So for the next couple days or weeks or months, I'm going to try to live on this side of this cabinet and see how that works for me. I'm going to see if this is enough for me. If not, I have plenty of places to shop right here and bring more over. But if it is enough, then I know that I can live with that. The other thing to do when you start a project is to marry up like items. So Tupperware up here, you know what? It goes down here in the Tupperware. Because then when I'm looking at that, I'll be able to see how much I really have. So another way to do this is to take one cabinet, if you have maybe a larger room, take one cabinet and shift everything that you would take over here, leaving everything that you would not take over here. So let's pretend, through the magic of television, that we're saying, okay, when I move or when I get my kitchen redone, when I get some new things, I'm going to set up my kitchen like this. And I'm going to see if I can live like this. So I pulled over some wine glasses because there's never enough wine glasses, and some water glasses and small plates and bowls and coffee cups. And I'm going to see how that works for me. And then everything in this cabinet, I know that I'm going to deal with over time. I may donate it, I may sell it, I might give it away, I don't know. But I'm going to live over here and see how that goes. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 2, in the drawer. I love a utility drawer. It's really fun. And this one, yeah, you're good. So what we have here is a cornucopia of products. First thing we're going to do is, again, like I said, we're going to marry up like items. So I have a juicer, and I know I have a little juicer over here, so I'm going to put that there. And then I have a Tupperware lid that should go down. All right, put that down here. Now, what is in this drawer? Well, I really do have thousands of bag clips. Can you see these? From the raisin bread and the things over here. Lots of that, and rubber bands, and some Tupperware lids that don't fit anything, and some bag ties, and some corks, which does always crack me up because it, So we have that, and all these fun things. So what I'm going to do is take it one by one. Here are all of the measuring spoons I have. I have 3 sets. I really don't need 3 sets. I need 1. So I'm going to put the one over here where I have all of my silverware that I know that I'm taking. I'm taking the 1. I have 2 or 3 peelers. Which one is the best? Well, this one always cuts me and I hate it, but I like this one. Okay, then this one goes here and this will go over here. And we have 3 candles. And we have this, which I didn't even really know what it is. Somebody can write in. What is that? Look. You know what that is? Tell us what that is. I guess it's a can something. What are we going to keep? Well, I'm going to keep this can opener, and I'm going to keep this whisk, and those tongs, and I have, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spatulas and all these wooden spoons, and the wooden spoons, really, I have better wooden spoons. I'm going to use the new ones now. So I'm going to put all these things that I'm not taking in my little bag here from Goodwin House for donation, and right there, and it goes. Of this, I mean, if you have to save some, I guess you could, but I'm not sure what we'll do with them. You guys can write in about that too. So then we're going to get to a place where the only thing in this drawer is what I'm keeping. Or alternatively, you could say that you're going to shift into one drawer what you're keeping and put in this drawer what you're donating or getting rid of. Either way is fine. So in this drawer now, we have our utensils that we're keeping, we have silverware, and oh, look at this, we have all of these fun kitchen towels. We have a nice brand new one, and then we have this orange one, which is really supposed to be in the bathroom, so we're not sure why it's still here. We have this one from a trip to somewhere long ago, but it has seen better days. And you know what, Eileen, if I was moving tomorrow or just making my kitchen nice, I would keep all of these brand new ones. And these I would let go. So again, you can put these in the donation, put these over here, and you're all set. So you're keeping things together and you're not making a huge mess. But if someone came in tomorrow and said, hey, Eileen, do you need any help with your project? I could say, yes, I do. See that bag? Take it to donation. Or see everything in that drawer? Take it to donation. Or everything in that cabinet? Take it out for me. So another good way to do this. And then in this one, this very, very unorganized drawer, we have all of this fun Tupperware and gadgets and things. So how are we going to go through this drawer? Well, you know how to do this. This isn't rocket science. We've done this many times before, but now it's decision time. So if you have 3 of these, but you have 15 lids to it, let's do better. Let's kind of minimize that. And let's separate what you really do use from what you don't. So I have a juicer and a juicer. Which one do you use? Neither? That's fine too. It can go to donation. But just decide what you are using and keep that and get rid of what you're not using. A little bacon cooker from the microwave that you've never used, maybe that could go to donation. Right in the bag. Okay, and then finally, we're going to talk about the spices. This is where we want to talk. One good minute. Lachey and I just found the expiration dates on both of these. They're hard to see. So on these tiny ones, can you see this? These tiny ones, the expiration date is on the bottom. Not really easy to see, so you might need a really good light. But this is on the bottom, and this is from September 15th. In my pantry. And this one, the expiration date is up here on the tape. And this one, best if used by February 15th.
2015, Eileen?
2015, yep. So definitely something that you want to go through. Like the slide said, they don't last forever. And, you know, you can combine them. You can combine some spices even once in a while, but go through that pantry and get rid of things because you definitely can make some space in there. And then as people always say to me, but Eileen, this is a really good little container because now I can use it for like my pills when I travel or certain little things that you need. Well, you know what? You probably have other things that you could use for that. So maybe it's a good time to just recycle. So lots of good information when you have the expiration dates. You can make those easier decisions. Okay, anything else?
We can go right into questions and answers if you're ready, Eileen.
I am.
And I do want to let you know that we did have one of our viewers write in to let you know that that mystery item is a can opener.
Is it?
That's what we know now.
Wow. Okay, it's a can opener.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
We've got to figure that out.
we've got several questions here. And
Okay.
so I'm just going to read you some questions and
I'm ready.
we'll take it from there. Okay. Do you have any suggestions as how many of our clothes we should consider essential, so to speak? I'd like to downsize my closets. I have only clothing that fits me, but I still have a lot. And this is a question from Gail.
Gail, I hear you, Gail. So, you know, to each his own. I mean, you know, if you are still getting dressed up and you need ball gowns and all the really dressy stuff, then by all means keep it. But if not, then consider letting those things go. I don't know that there's a right number for how much of anything that you should have. I think the most quantity of something that you should have should reflect the lifestyle that you lead. But you know, if you're wearing suits and coats and ties every day, then that's great. But if you're not, then you know, you don't need that. Well, and if you decide that you do need something dressy, would that item that's been in your closet for a while, not worn, be something that you would go to? So again, I'm not giving you a number, but I would say look at how that item of clothing reflects your lifestyle.
So I'm not correct what I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a can opener.
It's not a can opener.
It's a jar opener.
A jar opener. Okay.
So
Because then you crank it and then, okay.
yes, all right. And
Thank you.
Here's another question for you. And this one's from Martha. How many plates, eating bowls, drinking glasses, and silverware settings would you keep? I would like to know what charities are accepting donations. So it's a two-part question.
A two-parter. You know, I think 6 is a good number for, you know, 1 or 2 people. If you're moving into a community, I think it's a great number because you have a dishwasher. And although you think you might be cooking like you did at home, you won't. I guarantee you won't, because there's this fabulous dining room and people are cooking really great things down there. So, you know, I think 6 is a good number, but again, start living with that number now and see if that number works for you. Maybe it's 8, maybe, you know, maybe you need 8 bowls because you eat more things out of bowls. So, you know, pick a number now, start with 6, see if it works for you. And if not, you'll know. And then you can shop in the other cabinet in your kitchen. And the two-part question was, who is taking donation now? You can schedule donation pickups with Green Drop, which is, the website is www.go, green, like the color green, drop.com, www.gogreendrop.com. And you can, it's such an easy website. You go in, you put your address in, it'll say when they're in your neighborhood, and you schedule a pickup and out it goes. And Salvation Army has drop-offs now that are open. Some of the smaller ones are not, and it's really an issue about staffing. They don't have the staff to get in there and stay there. So they're opening it up, but you might want to call first.
Okay, great. So this is a question from Cosmo. And Cosmo seems to be a music lover. 1,500 vinyl LPs, 3,000 CDs, and 28-foot tall bookcases overflowing with books. Happy to donate, but doesn't really know how to get it out of his house or her house. And they're heavy. So do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, the funny thing is it came in one by one, right? You sound like a collector, and that's what it's all about, like the art of the kill, right? You're like, I found this great album that I love. Oh, this book I've been, looking for forever. And so you brought it in one by one, and now you have bulk. Suggestions are, look within your circle and a group of people, whether it's your family, your neighborhood, your church, your local organization, and ask around. Once people find out that you have a little project that you're working on, there's plenty of people who might be willing to help you. And be very clear about what you need. I need someone to come in and pick these things up and bring them upstairs. Or I'm not great with the computer. I need someone to schedule these pickups for me. And you have to own it. You have to do your work first. You have to look at every book and decide which ones you do want to take and which ones you don't. And the way that we suggest you do that is, you stand in front of that bookcase, and if you do want that book, you turn that, or if you do want that book, you leave it standing up. And if you do not want that book, you turn it down on its spine. So by the end of going through that bookcase, you have books that are standing and books that are on its spine. And then when you're ready, you can have someone come in and you just say, look, do me a favor, take all the books that are laying on their spine, put them in a box, and take them away. So you're going to have to do it one by one. I mean, there's no easy way. You have to do your work first.
Great. I think that was a really good tip. Here's a question that I think probably all of us are dealing with. How would you organize family photos?
Well, first we'd have to print them again, wouldn't we? They're all on my phone. It's a great question. And it's definitely like a little bit of a lost art, but people are craving that again. I think if we're talking about doing this in the downsizing, decluttering, tasking, then what I would say is gather them all up first. They're everywhere. They're in the drawers, they're in the books, they're in the nightstands, they're on the shelf, where are they? Gather them up. Get rid of, I did this. It's brutal, but I'm kind of brutal. But, I don't know who these people are. I don't know who's in that picture, And if I don't know who they are, I'm not keeping it. So, then you're starting to minimize, right? And then if there are duplicates and they're family things, you can start to give those away too. If you're keeping them, then honor them and put them in a beautiful box, or get, albums are great, but that's like a whole nother project, right? We don't want to add another crafty project right now. We just want to get organized and, minimize. So maybe put them in just a really pretty box. And after you've gone through everything else in the house, then you can get back to that someday and really kind of play with that. Places like Costco, and there are other places that I can't think of, will take your photographs and scan them and put them on a disc too, which is really nice.
Okay, great. Here's another one. Let's see. I've got one that talks about, this one I think is from Beth. And it says, you have recommendations on a place to sell antique silver that you don't want to.
Okay, antique silver. So two things there, antique and silver. First, you might want to get it appraised. So, some antique silver really has more value than just regular silver. So I always say to shop for what you would like to find the value of. So get online and, you know, Google it, shop for whatever the pattern is. And eBay is a great place to shop for those things because they'll be selling one or two and you'll be able to figure out what it's selling for. If you see that it has some high value, then collect it all and maybe get it appraised. If you want to sell it, then you'll know the value of it and you'll know, you know, if you have to go more high end, like an auction house, or if you can sell it on eBay.
Okay. A little earlier, Eileen, you mentioned the 1 year or 2 year rule for clothes. And so Margie is seeking some clarification on what you mean by that.
Okay, Margie, so we're gonna get personal. In my closet, I have things separated by color. And when I go to get something, I have a lot of white shirts. I don't even look good, but I have a lot of white shirts. So when I'm going to grab a shirt, I'm like, I haven't worn that one. I haven't worn that one. I've added some new ones, but I haven't worn some of these old ones. If I haven't worn it in a year or definitely 2, then it's coming out because my closet isn't that big and there's still more coming in. So you want to give yourself like, okay, I haven't worn it in a year. Well, okay, if you live in California, you haven't worn it in a year and you're wearing the same kinds of clothes all the time, that's one thing. Here we have different climates and different times where we wear coats and different things, so I can flex to 2 years. But if you haven't worn it in 1 or 2 years, then you should consider letting it go and opening up that space.
Okay, here's one, and this is a problem that I have as well. What can I do with the beautiful handmade Afghans made by beloved relatives? I won't use them, but they have such sentimental value.
They do. Oh gosh, I've seen some Afghans. They really are beautiful. So depending on, you know, the shape it's in, you can definitely donate them. And that really does help someone else quite a bit. You know, you can take a picture of it so that you can remember it forever, but you can donate it and give that gift on to somebody else. And again, you can gift it even within your own family if you think somebody else might enjoy it.
Okay, here's one from Margaret. I have a crib that was given to me 46 years ago when it had already done yeoman service for another family. So I'm guessing that Margaret's got a 46-year-old child. So the crib is about 63 years old. It obviously does not meet today's safety standards. Short of leaving it on the curb, how can I pass this along?
Pass it along to, okay. So we can't sell it, we know that. Is it an antique? Is it something that somebody in a consignment store might pay a few dollars for? And do you have other things that you might sell as well and make that trip to the consignment store really worth it and that whole kind of project worth it? You know, there are things that were used years ago for a very specific function that now are really more decor. There's a lot of young gals that are picking things up from the curbs and from consignment stores and painting them and making them into different things. So that might be an option, but I think it sounds like from your question that you understand that it's not sellable. And after that, I would say decor or sell it.
So here's another question from Michael. Can you recommend places that will assess the value of art and antiques? And how does one go about selling things like this?
Yeah, so it's a great question because if you have art or antiques and you're thinking about figuring out the value of it, you know, you can go in a couple different directions here. But if you are moving or you are, you know, thinking about if you should take it with you or if you should keep it, there is a cost to everything. There is a cost to having things appraised. So do you think it's potentially worth $20,000? Okay, well, maybe it's worth $300 or $400 or $500 to get appraised. Is it worth $100? Well, maybe it's not worth $200 or $300 or $400 to get it appraised. So the first place to start again is to educate yourself and get online and act like you're shopping for it and try to get some idea of the current market value of it. If you're starting to see that it might have some value, then you want to go to one of the reputable companies, and auction houses normally will have someone there who can come out and give you a certified appraisal. Now, there's plenty of people in our towns that sell things from their stores, and they can give you an appraisal, and that means, most people would pay $120 for that. But that's not a certified appraisal like you would need for an insurance company to sell it for a higher value. So if that's the case, then, there's Weschler's, there's Sotheby's, and some of those higher end auction houses.
Okay, and this is our last question, Eileen. What do you think about the idea of taking pictures of mementos and certificates and the like, and then throwing them away?
Yeah, don't tell my husband, but I did that. So I might be married to a retired naval officer. I think I still am. But so, they get plaques and plaques and plaques. Like every time they cross the street, they got a plaque. Or for some really great big events, they got a plaque. So there were millions of them. And so I did that. I took photographs of them. And then he eventually realized that he didn't need every single one anymore, and was really happy when I was like, hey, got these great photos. It's fine to take a picture of things. You can scan documents and they look really great online too, because you want to minimize paper in general, and you don't want to start this really big project. So again, if you're going to start doing that, first gather it all up and then scan it all and come up with a process that works for you, and then share it.
You see that Eileen and I are keeping our distance from each other because in the interest of you being able to hear us, we're not wearing our masks. So we're making sure that we're keeping a safe distance from each other. So we want to thank you very much for joining us in today's webinar. I don't know about you, but I got a lot out of this. I especially appreciated Eileen's demo in the cabinets there, where she didn't make us come up with a firm commitment. She let us just kind of shift things over to another cabinet and then live with that for a while to see if those were the dishes that we really needed. And I thought that was a great tip. It's a little less frightening to make that big commitment, not so hard to just think about, well, can I just live with this way? We hope that you'll join us for our upcoming webinars. You can always go to the events page at our website, goodwinhouse.org, to see what our upcoming webinars are. What we have scheduled right now, for example, is how to stay safe through reopening. And what we're talking about is the reopening of our communities, of our retail stores, of our restaurants, of all the things that are going on with phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of the reopening of our country. And our special guest will be Dr. Maggie Gloria, who's our medical director for Goodwin House Hospice. And she's going to share data and information about and tips about what you might want to do and maybe not do through these reopening phases. And that's on July 16th at 11. You can register for that webinar on our website, but you'll also be receiving an invitation in your email. Also, staying at home with Goodwin House at Home. As I mentioned earlier, Goodwin House at Home is one of our sponsors of this webinar, and they'll be talking specifically about the services that they can provide during that program, in that program on July 21st at 1 p.m. So same thing, if you'd like to attend, please go to the website to register. Katie, our next slide. We really hope that you enjoyed our webinar, that you got a lot out of it, and that you'll start going through your cabinets, in your closets, in your linen closets, in your basements, and your attics, and do it in a way that's not stressful and maybe a little bit fun, since Eileen gave you some helpful tips. We also hope that if you're interested in learning more about Goodwin House at Home or our life plan communities, Goodwin House Alexandria and Goodwin House Bailey's Crossroads, that you'll either call or email us to learn more. We've listed here our phone numbers and email addresses for each of those products of Goodwin House and services. And so thank you again. We're going to leave this slide up for a little while so that you can jot this information down. Thank you for joining us.